Throughout the entire Dexter series, we experience death. We see Dexter cutting bodies into pieces, and it doesn't make much of an impression on us, right? We can handle it like it's nothing. But there's a few exceptions that are too painful to watch, both emotionally and physically, which stay in your mind for a long time. Number 1, Batista. The last death we experienced, Batista, one of the most heartbreaking.
I need you to know, I didn't kill Maria or Dokes. I may be the bearer of a butcher, but I promise you I didn't kill them.
I know that Angel was a rather annoying character this season, and I saw that many wanted him dead for that very reason. I admit he irritated me too, but do we really want to forget about his character in OG Dexter? During this moving scene, I had only one thought in my head. If I had to choose a person, a real person to be like, out of anyone, it would be you. I mean, we all knew it was going to happen, especially given the episode title, but until the very end, a part of me believed that it wouldn't happen. His death was sad, of course, but what saddened me more was that Batista hated Dexter, that he became his enemy.
This is for Dokes! It's for Maria! Your bullshit has to stop!
Even though they used to be friends. Also, he died in the same way as Maria, shot and bleeding to death. The only positive thing I can find is that Angel didn't die by his hand. I would never forgive him for that. Number 2, Brian. One of the most painful deaths.
You should know this isn't easy for me.
Brian, for me, and probably for you too, it was emotionally the most painful scene in the entire series, and is a great example of death that stays on your mind for a long time. All Brian wanted was to be with his little brother, and when he finally got there and was able to be with him, Dexter was forced to kill him, mostly for Deborah's safety. In addition to the emotion and sadness that accompanied us at the time, let's also focus on the physical pain that Brian experienced, slitting his throat by surprise, in the middle of a conversation, and wriggling out in a moment. Number 3, the Skinner. Another terrifying character for me was George King, aka the Skinner.
What's your name?
George Washington King.
You can't tell me that looking at him doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. He kidnapped his victims and then slowly skinned them alive, causing unimaginable pain. It was a truly painful sight. In my ranking of the most painful deaths, I think this one would be at the top. I can't imagine being skinned alive. I have to say that the moment when Dexter broke his neck and threw him onto a moving car was somewhat satisfying. Number 4, Trinity.
Please, I'll do anything.
Jump.
No, I can't.
You can.
I have children.
I know.
And here we go, the most terrifying character in Dexter. Can't change my mind. Honestly, when I'm seeing this actor anywhere, I'm terrified. And of course, one of the best antagonists, if not the best one. I used to think the deaths caused by Travis Marshall were the worst, the most painful and terrifying, but now I'm wondering which one wins the contest, Trinity or Travis? Let me know what you think. As it later turned out, his entire series consisted of 4, not 3, horrific murders. The first stage, which Lundy had no idea about, involved kidnapping a boy and then burying him alive underneath concrete at the construction site for one of the homes his 4 Walls, 1 Heart organization was building. I think everyone has wondered at some point what it's like to be buried alive, but I don't think anyone would want to find out. Next, a woman bleeding out in a bathtub. Suffocation and then bleeding out seems to be one of the most painful deaths. The next stage of the cycle is just as scary. I'm not a fan of heights and tend to avoid them, so this makes it all the more frightening for me. So imagine that you're standing on the edge of a tall building with the thought that you're about to fall off of it, straight onto the concrete. Still, I think it's not a very physically painful death because it's rather quick, but the things that are probably going through your head as you fall, knowing it's going to end. We've reached the end of this 6th cycle. The last stage is a deadly bludgeoning. It's gotta be particularly painful just because you don't know when it's going to end, and probably when it happens, you don't expect it to end this way. I don't want to add a separate thread for this character, but Christine Hill, Trinity's daughter, should be mentioned. Out of love for her father, who didn't care about her anyway, and trying to protect him, she shot Deborah and killed Lundy. She wanted to be noticed by her father, accepted, but even that didn't help. I think she committed suicide out of guilt, but also because she felt unloved. If you stop and think about it for a moment, she may be one of the most tragic characters. Because her death was quick, it may not seem particularly painful physically, but putting a gun to your own head and shooting without thinking is a terribly unsettling thought. Before you watch any further, I'm happy to finally announce that I'm releasing the first limited drop of my t-shirts. At the start, there are only 100 available, so make sure you buy them while you can at dtmerch.store. Enjoy the video. Number 5, Jordan Chase.
I'm gonna put you out of your misery.
Perhaps Jordan Chase was an annoying character, but it must be admitted that as the leader of the group, what he ordered his colleagues to do was exceptionally awful. And I think that his appearance and his whole life coach persona takes away from his creepiness. It's hard to call him a murderer because, as we all know, he didn't kill his victims directly. However, he was the mastermind behind the operation and he was in charge of everything. The whole process of his crimes was repulsive. Each of these women went through hell. They were kidnapped, imprisoned, and repeatedly raped by Chase's group and his accomplices.
Eugene never touched me, but he got those guys going. He talked them into it, told them to seize their desires.
These were not quick killings. They were prolonged acts of violence that led to slow deaths. The women suffered mentally, knowing they were being treated like toys and that their agony was inevitable. The physical pain combined with humiliation and sexual violence made these deaths some of the most painful and inhumane in all of Dexter. And the fact that he did not participate in it himself, but only watched, giving instructions to his friends, as if that weren't enough, after such traumatic experiences, the women were killed and their bodies were then dumped in barrels in a swamp. Don't get me wrong, but after such experiences, death was probably the best thing that could have happened to them. After much thought, I believe that it was the deaths connected with Jordan Chase that were the most painful, mainly because in most of these cases, we are dealing with a quick death, probably extremely painful, but still quick. In this case, we're dealing with the prolonged suffering of these women, both physically and mentally. This is demonstrated above all by the attitude of Lumen, who miraculously escaped with her life and was motivated to find and murder each of the members for the hell they had created for her. Number 6, the award for the most creative murderer goes to Travis Marshall. It can be said that his murders escalated, and with each subsequent one, they became increasingly brutal. Starting with killing a man with a sword, which is pretty trivial for Travis, and then gutting him and putting live snakes inside his intestines. Obviously after he's already dead, but it's still pretty nasty. He begins to get into his stride, knocking the man unconscious in order to kidnap him, then dismembering his body to place it as mannequins on horses. Honestly, the scene where these horses ride out onto the street is particularly stuck in my memory. Another one of the most memorable scenes is the staging, or as they called it, the tableau of the Angel of Death, leaving a woman hanging on a rope with spikes that pierced her arteries in a second. I've only pointed out a few of them, but you have to admit, Travis was a creative psycho.
But that's not the look of a murderer. That's the look of a man with true faith.
Number 7, Nick. We move on to the man who killed Brother Sam, who, in my opinion, is one of the best characters. It's the kind of murder that gave me satisfaction. He deserved it after what he did to Sam. Death by drowning, or rather suffocation, also seems to be one of the most painful and brutal, mainly because you have little control over what is happening and you start to panic. Many people also have water-related trauma, and I'm not surprised at all. Number 8, Oliver Saxon, the brain surgeon. This one gives me the most creeps, to be honest, because his whole character was pretty creepy. We have dealt with creepy murderers before, but I must say there was something special about him. He looked inconspicuous, but there was something about him that scares you from the very beginning. Admittedly, we didn't see Saxon's murders themselves, only their final effect in the form of jars with their contents. But after seeing this picture, I don't think we'd want to watch. A cut open brain, and on top of that, one of its parts removed. It's also worth mentioning how he murdered his own mother, cutting her throat in cold blood.
Don't touch her.
Mother chose the wrong son.
I see a connection here with the death of Brian, who died in different circumstances, of course, but in the same way at the hands of Dexter. There is also a similar reference here. He had just met the person who helped him survive by creating a code, although Dexter was unaware of this for most of his life. In addition, Saxon's death itself was quite painful. The scene where Dexter kills Saxon by stabbing him in the neck with a pen, causing him to bleed to death, it just looks terrible. In addition to physical pain, we also experience mental pain here because it was Saxon who caused Deborah's death. Interestingly, as in the case of Trinity, Dexter didn't kill him at the first opportunity, but essentially handed him over to Deborah, and we all know how that ended. Number 9, Kurt Caldwell. There is something about an older character in such a role that causes exceptional unease. The rest of the serial killers we have seen in abundance don't cause as much discomfort and anxiety as Kurt Caldwell or the aforementioned Trinity. His method of killing was equally interesting. He lured a young woman into a room and imprisoned her there for several days, and then released her and fired a rifle at her as she fled. And once again, we're dealing with death by bleeding out. But something I would like to draw particular attention to here is his trophy room, where he placed women as kind of dolls. We've seen all kinds of trophies collected by murderers, from Dexter's blood slides to earrings and even teeth, but what Caldwell did was quite unique. Number 10, Laura Moser. Although we didn't see much of this event, it cannot be overlooked, and I am deliberately mentioning it only at the end. Just the thought of being cut alive by a chainsaw is gut-wrenching. In the end, what sets these moments apart isn't just the violence, it's the pain. Some deaths were drawn out, agonizing, and unforgettable. Trinity may seem like the clear choice, but the suffering caused by Travis Marshall, Oliver Saxon, and even Jordan Chase reminds us that pain in Dexter's world comes in many forms. Which death struck you as the most painful to witness? Which Dexter villain left behind the kind of torment that's impossible to forget? Share your thoughts below and decide for yourself whose victims endured the greatest suffering.